you so much for being with us. Now, you may have heard, and if not, you're about to hear, we do have a Q&A. I do have a very special guest who's going to come and join us. Ladies and gentlemen, it isn't this motorcycle, it is Timothée Chalamet!
Thank you everyone for being here.
First of all, congratulations on the movie. We all loved it, right?
This motorcycle up here too.
We have everything for you. Welcome to SCAD.
Hey, thank you. This is an honor being here. I know this is a very prestigious school. I don't know if I would have gotten in here, but by a simple twist of fate, I'm sitting here and I get to talk about this movie. So.
If you want to come here, we can make it happen. We can do that.
A green light went off when you said that. I don't know what that means.
First of all, how's the game?
Listen, man, I'm fried, man. I'll be honest. I've never been to any sort of college football game, SEC. I literally hear my voice, so I'm absolutely fried. But all I have is Coca-Cola, so I'm nice and lucid for this conversation.
We appreciate it. Well, let's get straight into it. So,
Yes.
This is a movie so driven by music for so many obvious reasons. But tell us about, how did you get into that? Because this is a movie that's absolutely filled, music is coming constantly through this. So tell me sort of like, how did you prepare for that? What was the road to that?
Well, the connection to the music became, or was sincere from the jump. This wasn't an artist I grew up with, Bob Dylan, but like many people here, I'm sure, I hope, if you don't know, this movie would perhaps be a gateway to you. In this experience I had, it became music that was deeply meaningful to me, because Bob Dylan's music is really the music of life. In a grand sense, songs like It's All Right Ma, or Gates of Eden, or Blind Willie McTell, and also in a very specific lovesick sense, no pun intended, Girl from the North Country, or One Too Many Mornings. This is an artist whose scope was massive, and as an actor who gets the benefit or the opportunity to slide into different roles, the tone of this film is much different than the tone of Wonka or the tone of Dune. Maybe, I mean, that's just true. Bob Dylan does that. He's ice skating as a musician, and there's great musicians who stick in a genre, and this is a man who really did it all. So, to turn it back around to your question, because I went on a tangent there, I really just loved the music, and I had years to sink into it. A typical role. Not that any role is typical, but if you get 3, 4 months, 5 months to work on it, that's considered a lot. I had 5 years and it didn't feel like work. I fell in love with this music and became in reverence to it, and it became the most fun part of the experience on set was to do this stuff live and to play these songs live. Because if a songwriter being in that special moment in their career or their artistry is sort of like, not to be pretentious or hyperbolic, is sort of like God speaking through them, which is almost what was happening to Bob Dylan in this period. These words were coming to him in a way that he says in that Ed Bradley interview in 60 Minutes in 2004, around there, he goes, he says, I can't do it anymore, almost melancholically. He goes, that was just, I could do it then. And I feel like in this moment as an actor, somewhere lower on the peg of that grand metaphor, I just had this opportunity to channel that moment. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm very proud of the work, but I can tell you, the finished product that is, but I can tell you the experience of it was indescribable.
And so tell us how long you spent on this movie in terms of preparation. You say it was a very long period of time.
Yeah, it was 5.5 years. So I got approached in 2018. I knew little about Bob Dylan, like I said. I got into it through the press conferences, then through the music. And I'm talking about like early stages. But when you say work on it, it didn't really feel like that. I had, when the pandemic hit and we all had a lot of time on our hands, I was just deep in this material and the music. There's great documentaries. One of my favorite music documentaries is called Don't Look Back, and it's because there's been a lot. There's so much Bob Dylan lore in the modern day parlance. See what I did there? No, there's so many books written. There's a book about Bob Dylan called Not Another Book About Bob Dylan, and some of the movies that even Rolling Thunder Review or No Direction Home, they're sort of in deep reverence to Bob. So if you're playing him, you can't play an enigma, you can't really play a genius. So a bunch of interviews with people saying what a genius he wasn't as helpful to me as this documentary, Don't Look Back, which is really raw. It's just him sort of in this great moment of his career. There's a Lil Wayne documentary too called The Carter that captures him, and that's no joke. That's like a brilliant documentary, and it captures Lil Wayne in a similar moment where that he hasn't turned his back yet on the pressure and expectation of like in that Lil Wayne documentary, he's 25, and Don't Look Back, I think Bob is 24. The rest of his life, he didn't really allow himself to be captured as rawly, in a raw state as something like moron. Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
I know that you've said that some of the experience that he would have gone through at the time of his rise to fame mirrors some of your own experience as well.
I'll lead with that. Because I don't want to put myself in the same boat as him, because his is a career and an artistry that's so legendary. But it sort of goes without saying I can relate to that stuff. I want to really be able to put it into words, but I guess the fact that I couldn't put it into words is what I'm trying to say. Just the strangeness.
But tell us, so what new particular skills? Because here you're, there's singing, there's guitar playing, there's harmonica. How long did that take, and what was that experience like?
It was a years-long process. The fantastic harmonica teacher Rob, amazing guitar teacher Larry Saltzman, who somebody know them here? Honestly, really? Somebody know Larry Saltzman here?
Yes, my dad.
Are you serious? No, are you serious? Oh, okay. I was like, I've been talking to Larry 5.5 years. He never said anything about his son. And I don't know, get it back on track. And just getting it, just it's gonna be hard to get back serious again. It was like a process of osmosis. Nothing was, I don't want to do my victory lap, and I never want to do a victory lap, particularly because the movie hasn't come out, and this stuff could run online. So, but the truth is, I'm so proud of this process, because I feel like any artist, like any actor, as soon as you feel like you figured out what you do, you're kind of stuck. So you always got to push. And I talked about this before, but I saw like my good friend Austin who did Elvis, or I saw other people went about doing their respective biopics, and I kind of went down those avenues, the physicality coach and speech, and then I was like, this really isn't for me. I love the music here. I'm connected to the music. Edie Falco, the great actress from The Sopranos, Nurse Jackie, she came to my high school, LaGuardia, and I've said this before, but she gave this great Q&A answer where we would have great actors come, and they would say, what's your process? And they would give these like long answers you couldn't relate to at all. And you're like, talk about like the clothes or whatever, and it's scratchy. And like, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And Edie Falco, they said, what's your process? She goes, I don't know, but I just do it. And I was like, that makes sense,
But I know, it's a mic drop question there.
Absolutely.
But I know that you said that you listened to a lot of the music that he would have been listening to at the time as well. That was kind of to get you into that headspace to really try and figure out where these came from?
Yeah, exactly. I felt like that was level 37 or something, where at some point I feel like I knew the music so well in and out. Jeff Rosen, Bob's manager this day, had sent me these, massive files of basically every song Bob recorded from every version that exists from 59 to 63, and little demos in Minnesota that, especially when I visited Minnesota, Hibbing and Duluth, where Bob's from, I wanted to listen to what he would have been listening to at the time as it relates to the movie, because a lot of it was Buddy Holly and Little Richard and Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. He found his way into folk music. It was an area named Dinkytown in Minneapolis. That's the name of it, believe it or not. And that's where he fell in love with Woody Guthrie and I don't want to say Hank Williams necessarily. I think Hank Williams he fell in love with on the radio, if I'm correct. But I always loved that the initial people look up to. I feel like that, without naming names, but or probably like a lot of people at this fancy art school, like the first artists you look up to are, quote unquote mainstream, for lack of a better, and then as your taste whatever refines itself and you want to come off refined, then you find, somebody that's got 3 listens or something. No, I'm kidding. But, so I feel like Bob had what am I trying to say, man? I just feel like I love the Sun Records stuff. It was important for me to listen to what he was listening to at that time and get in that headspace. Bill Pagel's a mega Bob fan who owns his childhood house in Hibbing and in Duluth. And in Hibbing, he has the original acetates, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of Johnny Cash record, things that were blowing Bob's mind at the time. It was important for me to go to that part of the country. I was gonna say the part of the earth, because that's what it feels like. You feel like you're on the edge of the earth in Hibbing, Minnesota. Especially as a New Yorker, I got there in this pickup. I remember where I was skidding on ice on the way there, and I really, I was talking about this with some friends earlier. I feel like I had a hard enough time getting my career going being from New York. And when I think, man, this hero's journey of being from Hibbing, Minnesota, going to New York, and I'm a big Kid Cudi fan too, and I see it there. There we go. More Kid Cudi fans than Lil Wayne fans apparently. Seeing his hero's journey from Cleveland to New York, and it's just mind-boggling. Like I said, I had a hard enough time being from New York when I think that's the coolest artistic journey to me.
But you took, I think, 3 trips?
Two trips. Yeah, 2 trips. One sort of strictly to Minnesota, Duluth and Hibbing, and one that was trying to retrace Bob's footsteps on what I understand his first car trip to New York to have been, which was through Wisconsin and through Chicago. There's a drawing in Bill Pagel's house he won't allow to be released online, which I think is beautiful. I don't want to describe it too much, but it's Bob basically, it's a drawing that encompasses him and Woody Guthrie in the same drawing. And I don't want to say too much, but there's such a profound sense of manifestation, as we would say today, that's more obvious now, but it wasn't obvious then. It's hard to imagine Bob Dylan, perhaps we don't even see in this movie, in this period. There was no archetype yet. There's an archetype for me, and he was, in a sense, punk rock before punk rock. I mean, what you see at Newport, getting booed on stage and refusing to not pursue your art because it's true to you in that moment, and depending on how you interpreted the movie, maybe you think, oh, well, he was being selfish in regards to some characters in that moment, or maybe he was just engaged with the whole movie, which is his art, as opposed to someone in your life who's engaged with you some of the time, and all of a sudden they flip that off switch and they're kind of considered an asshole. But if the whole time the guy was on focused on what he was focused on, can you really begrudge him? You gotta cut me off, man, because I'm just gonna keep going.
Actually, that leads me to a very sort of personal question, but I think it will resonate with a lot of people, in that there's that moment right at the end of the film when the organ's starting to play and you turn and look. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if you can remember that scene, but I'm curious about what's going through your mind as Bob Dylan at that moment.
At the Newport 65 scene, at the top of the sequence? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I haven't been lucky to talk about this moment yet in an interview because it didn't really come up, but that was a conversation I had with Faden. This was above my pay grade in some way, the cinematographer of the film. But the way we were starting to shoot that sequence, I thought was I would never do this on another movie because it's really out of the pay grade of an actor. And I said it to Jim first, because if he would have told me to fuck off, I would have fucked off. But I thought it was overlit in some way. And I feel like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't say that, man. But I'll say this, that it's not like the climax of another music film or a musical where there's choreography to hit and it's exciting to an audience because the choreography is perfect. That moment is a vibe, for lack of a better expression. It's a guy basically going, fuck you, I'm gonna do what I want, and getting booed off stage. And if you look at the original Newport 65 footage, it's haunting, it's spooky, it's black and white, so you can't get a sense that he's wearing an orange shirt. In the movie, you see this an orange shirt, and it feels like it's Halloween or something. It doesn't feel like an extended hand. And that's honestly what I can remember from that Oregon days when we started to shoot that sequence, just getting Jim's permission to talk about it with Faden a little bit and say, hey man, can we make this darker? Because I feel like when I look at the footage, it's darker, and I feel like he's getting lit by the intense bulbs from the 60s, these flashes, and if you like this movie, I'm telling you, if you watch that 65 footage, it's fucking awesome. It's no other word for it. You know, I've said this before, but every artist that I'm sure people look up to in this room like I do, that kind of bucks the trend in American pop culture, at least, you can kind of draw, at least I can draw a moment, draw a line to that moment in Newport. And I hope it resonated with you guys, because it was something before the movie that when I started working on it, and I thought, man, it's something like, I talked about Christian Bale once, because he read the script, and he was like, you know, the challenge of this movie is just gonna be to get people to care about it, get people to wrap their head around, hey, at some moment in American pop culture, to play an electric guitar was like a radical thing to do, whereas today, maybe it's not so much. I hope the movie does a deft job of that. The lights turned yellow.
I know.
What that means.
It means our time's going way too fast,
all right.
but we've got some student questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions
Let's
from
go.
the audience.
Great.
So I just want to say, over 300 questions came in during this movie, so thank you so much for that, of which I have
Amazing.
4. Wait, this comes in and it says, how has this film changed your taste in music?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it opened many doors. You know, I grew up on the music that was on the menu growing up, you know, and I'm very proud of that, because, you know, what Kid Cudi means to me as an artist himself, and the artist he shaped me to be, the friendship I have with him, that I really like Call Me By Your Name, or those movies wouldn't exist without his I mean it. And, you know, I could draw that line from Cleveland to Italy with no sense of comedy. And this, you know, Bob Dylan and his music, it opened the doors to, you know, culture in the 60s might be boring to people that, you know, grew up with their parents maybe playing. Like, my mom was more into show tunes and stuff like that, so I didn't really have an ear for it. But, you know, just basic stuff like even the Beatles or the Kinks, or on the folk side, you know, Paul Clayton, Townes Van Zandt, Joan Baez, you know, it seems so redundant now to put music in the form of I am, you know, I'm going through this. But then it was radical, you know, Bob was like an avant-garde musician because folk music was the stuff of Irish ballads. Now it seems so trivial that you would just go, hey, maybe I'll take this format and I'll make it about what I'm going through. But at that time I was like, what the fuck's this guy doing, you know? Yeah.
And related to that, actually, we had a question about what's on your Spotify Wrapped at the moment.
And this is gonna be blasphemous, I'm about to say. I don't have Spotify. I'm a SoundCloud Pro kind of guy. I thought that would be more the indie cut. I actually did just get a SoundCloud because I don't like the ads all the time. So, yeah.
So, did learning to sing and play like Dylan change your relationship to his music?
Of course, yeah, of course. You know, yeah. Maybe we can sneak one more question in, because that's just a yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did Dylan's lyrics inform your performance of him?
That's a great one too. I mean, these are like the greatest words ever. You know, someone said to me, it's hard to make a movie about a painter because it's not interesting to watch paint dry. And I was nervous about that with this movie because ultimately there's a lot of scenes about lyricism. And absent, if you saw the Walk the Line movie, which is by the same director, the Johnny Cash movie, which I love, Joaquin Phoenix is incredible in that movie. It's a clearer 3-act struggle. He's playing an addict and crumbles. And this is really about a guy who was quite successful quite quickly, you know, and was basically gifted from the jump. And how do you dramatize that lyricism? You know, a huge help for me, just based on Bob Dylan, was getting into this Beatles docuseries, Get Back, and seeing these scenes where Paul McCartney will just come up with, you know, some of the greatest songs of our times, and realizing, hey, that's really the process of it, you know. These guys come up with these songs by coming up with these songs. It's not more complicated than that. And that's sort of tangential to what you were saying. These words, Bob Dylan's words, are electric. I hope you can see that in the movie. They were as moving to me as any great piece of dialogue I've ever had, maybe even more so, because they're on a rhythm and to melody.
Seeing as we've got time, I've got one more question for you, which is, so I'm really interested in how the production design and costume design because we had the amazing Ariane Phillips who did this. She was at Savannah Film Festival. Had the privilege. Did anyone get to see that by any chance? Was anyone down at Savannah Film Festival?
I was.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got TV Festival coming up. Don't forget that. Book it in your diaries. Come and join us. But we had Ariane Phillips who obviously did this, and I'm curious about. You mentioned earlier about, actors who have the scratchy, outfits and stuff, but how did the costume design with this movie help? Because it is so beautiful, and the Greenwich Village that's been created there is absolutely stunning. So tell me how that helped and informed your process.
Well, in the most basic sense, wearing your pants higher than you would now, and cinching your belt higher than you would, obviously just, I guess in a sense I could be an outside-in actor. That, the movie I finished 3 days ago, this movie Marty Supreme, my clothes were super informative, just the looseness of them, the bagginess of them, the suits, with Ariane, my chief creative dialogue with Ariane was just, begging her to the point of irritation, probably on her part, towards me, just to make the clothes as beat up as possible, because it's sort of pet peeve of mine when I see biopics of people in 50s and 60s. You kind of see the costume just got pulled out of a storage locker, and especially in that early period of I said, please, especially because the movie's shot in a handsome way. I love that Jim made this bold, creative decision. I'm not a director, so I would have had the bad instinct to try to make it look how it looked at the time, black and white, grainy footage, but he makes it look really beautiful. But because it looks so beautiful, I said, Ariane, please, beat the shit out of my clothes. Because I don't think was wearing new stuff. And it's hard to do. It's extremely hard to do. If you can't get something from a costume, you need doubles for everything, because producers are freaked out that if you do a reshoot, or if something gets a stain on something, you'll have to wear so if the vintage stuff doesn't exist in doubles, they have to create something new from scratch. If you create something new from scratch, you have to age it. And that's a laborious process,
And so we've got time, actually, because it hasn't gone red yet. So
perfect. Let's keep going.
We have actors and filmmakers here in the room. What advice would you have for someone who's just at that point of their career of starting? Maybe they've got a couple of years of study left, or maybe you graduate this summer. But what advice would you give to people who are out there about?
And I love that question, because I feel like I was asked that in my early 20s, mid-20s, I had bad answers. And I've been wanting to sort of go back to the arts high school I went to, hoping to get that kind of question. I don't really know what my answer is. I know my answer isn't, which is, and I'm really no authority on the thing. Hey, shit, man, if Bob Dylan was here, you'd be like, shut the fuck up right now. You got nothing to say. Because that's really, I guess, what my advice would be is, in a sense, I have nothing to say. You know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. And, man, this is an acting school too, right? Just, what would I really say? It's never fascinating to watch somebody or a piece of art do it the way it's been done. Now, equally, you don't want to just throw shit at the wall because it's interesting, but do it. You know what your superpower is. We all have superpowers, and some people, the world at large will try to limit your superpowers, and you got to figure out what your superpower is and sort of just be relentless about that. And no one's gonna empower you to know what your superpower is except you. And that alarm going off. No, and as that red thing goes off. No, but I wish I could impart that, because I feel like I was lucky to have teachers who impart that on me. And beware the people that will make you think they're enabling your superpower. You enable your superpower. And if people think that's fucking cheesy, whatever, do it. And yeah.
That's a perfect, wonderful place to end. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.